We will talk today about innovation and social intelligence and how social learning and social intelligence influence innovation. How can you create game-changing inventions? So on December 23rd, 2006, a famous American journal, The Economist, published a special report on neuroscience, which featured 6 different accounts. And one of them was called How Others See Us, and it begins with a statement that dealing with other people changes our minds. So our minds evolutionally have grown not because on its own of its own reason, but they've grown because we needed to negotiate with other human minds. And this discovery was made in the evolutionary biology, and it's also interesting that the enlargement of the human brain was a need to survive in the social environment and not in the physical or biological one or natural one. And it's also, this account in The Economist unlocked a very interesting knowledge about mirror neurons. And those mirror neurons are very important for development of empathy. And people with autistic disorder or Asperger disorder do not have those neurons functioning in a normal state. And for learning and also for the feeling of empathy, it's very important to recognize that those neurons play a crucial part in our life. What is social learning? It's something which has to do with connection. So when we learn, when we begin learning as children, we connect with our parents. Our parents build with us this emotional connection and we learn from them, and our brain develops. And social intelligence have been studied by different scientists. One of them is a famous Daniel Goleman, who wrote The Emotional Intelligence, the book which became popular in the United States and the entire world, and we use it extensively to teach leaders in different countries empathy and social skill. And Daniel Goleman, together with his co-author Richard Boyatis, published an article in Harvard Business Review, which is called The Social Intelligence and the Biology of Social Intelligence, where he gave a definition to social intelligence that it's basically a set of competencies built on specific neural circuits that inspire others to be effective. So leaders are able to cause a chemical reaction in the brains of their followers, and they fuse together into a singular system, their brains. And this is a very interesting discovery. And when we talk about leading effectively, we do not talk about mastering situations. We do not talk about developing social skill set or mastering it. What we talk about is how to develop a genuine interest in other people and how to develop a talent for fostering positive feelings in other people or in our followers if we are leaders. And once you learn how to do it, and it involves chemical reactions, it involves endocrine system, you will be able to inspire people, you will be able to also inspire them to cooperate with you and support and to get support from them, which you need as a leader. It's also, when we talk about leadership and when we talk about social learning, social intelligence, and furthermore, when we talk about innovation, this is where what I researched, it's important to be able to build quality relationships for leaders with their followers. When we talk about teams, it's in any team, it's important to build quality relationships. And they enable creative thinking on one side. On the second, they help people see situations or see themselves or self-reflect what they were not able to do without having this quality relationship with another person. And it involves, or it requires equal measures of self-disclosure, vulnerability. We were talking with you at another class about leadership and empathy and how important also for leader to be able to show vulnerability, and also reciprocity in relationships, shared passion, social chemistry, and patience. And those are the ingredients of effective and what I call quality relationships. It's very interesting to look what happens in our brain when we interact and when we learn. So our brain, we have one brain, but we have two hemispheres. The right hemisphere is the hemisphere responsible for images, for emotions, for a feeling of empathy. So everything, when you look at the beautiful picture or beautiful painting, your right hemisphere is being involved and dominating. And and our left hemisphere, the left hemisphere is the one which is responsible for logic, for processing of numbers, of words, of languages. And if you think about famous people, there was a very interesting exhibition in Vienna, in Untere Belvedere, which was called Sigmund Freud and Salvador Dali. And Salvador Dali, he was a person with a dominant right hemisphere. So after having read the book written by Sigmund Freud, Interpretation of the Dreams, he was drawing what he felt is sublimation, also what Freud discussed, because Salvador Dali was a right-driven person driven by right hemisphere. And Sigmund Freud, who became the author of the psychoanalysis, he had a left hemisphere as a dominant one. He was analyzing a human mind, what he thought, how he thought. And it's very important for us to know when we interact, and leaders who are high on social intelligence, they have very well developed both hemispheres and well managing both hemispheres. And leaders who manage innovation teams, they also have those two hemispheres well developed, and also all innovators. Because in order to innovate, innovation is solving a problem. You need to connect with other people in order to see the problem from different aspects, from different angles, and you need to be able to process all the data, and this is for what you require your left hemisphere. I've been studying for the last 20 years creative minds or people who are legendary inventors and legendary scientists in order to find how do they solve problems. So how is their mind different from mind of ordinary people? And if you think about Maria Skłodowska-Curie, Albert Einstein, and Leonardo da Vinci, those are the creative minds which everybody regards with awe, and nobody understands what actually allowed them to solve the problems which nobody was able to solve. And I did a research, and I discovered that there is a lot, have been written about discovery skills of great innovators, but the literature overlooked the fundamental question: what does a creative mind actually do? And I studied innovators in different industries and different countries, and I looked how they solve problems. And then I compared that data with the data on legendary inventors and scientists. And what I discovered is that crucial for our understanding that we as humans, we are bio-social cultural systems. So we are not social animals. This is a misconception. Because sometimes, also when we were talking with you in the previous lecture about alpha femininity and alpha masculinity, I have introduced a three-dimensional model of the femininity and masculinity because human is a bio-social cultural system. And in the previous understandings of the alpha masculinity, which we see in the Harvard Business Review, we see human as a biosystem. We see alpha male, the one who is the highest in virility or fertility with the highest biological power. But humans are biosocial cultural systems, and what does it mean is that humans, during the evolution, they've changed, and they do not longer submit their programs of behavior genetically. So they submit it socially, meaning via non-inherited ways. So when we are born into a particular society, into a particular culture, we learn different values, knowledge. We learn by interacting with other humans. And none of the programs which animals have, if you look at the animals, when they are born, they have all their genetic mechanism which transmits their programs, what to do, how to mate, or how to have a hierarchy, if we talk about apes. But humans are different. And in humans, the mechanism which was used to be genetic was replaced by the mechanism which we call culture, and this is a non-genetic mechanism of social inheritance. And culture, the definition which I use, that culture is a non-genetic mechanism of social inheritance used by humans to transmit all of the behavioral programs. And why is it important for us? Because in different cultures, we learn different knowledge. And when we solve different problems, we need to fuse knowledge from different cultures into one single entire whole. And when many of you have grown up in different cultures, and you might know that in different cultures you have totally different understanding of how the world operates. And I postulate that each individual personalizes the values, the knowledge, and the vision of the future which was transmitted via culture to him or via cultural groups. And I have a 3D model. I have developed a 3D model of culture. Why is it 3D? Because we have knowledge, values, and vision of the future as the axis. And we have 3 different levels, which you see. And 3 different levels have to do with the dimension of, first dimension, you have common human culture, which is down here. Let's see, I went now back. So, which is here, the common human culture. And the common human culture, it's something which we have all in common, regardless in which national culture we lived. And then there are cultures of various social groups, which includes here nationality, so national groups, then gender groups, if we think about female or male gender groups, different norms, different values, different language or code which we use to communicate with each other. Then occupational groups also are here, different religious or confessional groups also fall in the second layer, cultures of various social groups. And the last one is the culture of personality. Those are these individual unique features which each of us has, and which includes all of the different levels of the culture pyramid. And what's also, I have if you see 2 shaded area in the pyramid, and it means that you have your own culture, which is your native culture. Let's say you're a woman, Austrian woman, who have studied, let's say, engineering, and who is Catholic. So those are all social groups you have. And then you interact with let's say German man, so it's, and this is alien culture. So man, the male culture for female culture is alien, vice versa, meaning a different. It's a foreign culture. And I have developed a mental hologram innovation method. It's a method which helps companies to produce game-changing inventions. And if we come back to our famous innovators or creative minds, Leonardo da Vinci, Maria Skłodowska-Curie, and Leonardo da Vinci, Albert Einstein, Leonardo da Vinci, Maria Skłodowska-Curie, we see that what my research have shown, that what they all have in common, that they were driven by a relentless urge to learn and master everything they knew. They were insatiably curious. And what set them apart is that first they were forging bonds and developing deep friendships with experts from different cultures. Cultures here can be also occupational culture, professional culture, your educational culture, it's also culture, which was stimulating them to see a problem from different angles, from different perspectives, and to find a solution by visualizing fragmented knowledge as a whole. And this is what I call create the 3D insight. If you think about Albert Einstein, in one of his famous lectures in Japan, in Kyoto, he said that it's his discussions with his best friend Michele Besso which helped him to finally find a solution to the problem of relativity. And in addition to his discussions with his best friend, Albert Einstein was discussing his emerging theory with his wife, Milena Maric. He was discussing it with a circle of his friends, scientists, with whom he was meeting each week. And his mind was collecting those fragmented pieces of knowledge which all of other experts with whom he was talking had, and trying to solve the problem he was working on. I will give shortly a definition, what I call a mental hologram. Why did I choose such a metaphor? But the core engine of illuminating a mental hologram, and mental hologram is a specific state of consciousness of innovator, so when they solve a problem, and the core engine is a social connection. And strong personal ties, they stimulate cognitive functioning, increase cognitive engagement, and they foster learning. What is the pattern which I found in all of those brilliant innovators, including famous inventors, scientists, and entrepreneurs whom I studied, is that, first of all, they find solutions to the difficult problems which they're solving by creating 3D insights. And what they do is they serve as information managers. So they collect different tidbits of knowledge from the minds of other experts, and they connect it, or they try to see it as a whole, as an integral picture. Let me see the definition. I wanted to go. So, what is a mental hologram? I put it a bit further on so that it's clear why I use the term mental hologram. So, I compare the process of creating key insights, which are crucial for solving a problem or making a leap in finding a solution. So, I compare it to the method of generating holograms used in physics for three-dimensional information storage. And the name is derived from the Greek holo, and which means whole, and gram, meaning to write. And if a hologram, it's an instrument which writes the whole in physics. When most of us think of holograms, if we think of them at all, most people imagine people from the Star Wars, characters from Star Wars, communicating with each other through galaxies using a 3D imaging technologies. But holograms are not illusions. So holograms, it's a three-dimensional image which is recorded on film by two laser beams. And this is crucial in physics. And I use this metaphor, mental hologram, to illustrate a method of just seeing the whole problem and its solution as a whole in a three-dimensional space. And mental hologram, it's a pivotal moment in discovery process when one mind, which is laser focused on the problem and interacting with another mind, visualizes the fragmented knowledge as a whole. And what's important here that illuminating mental hologram, I use this term, it's not seeing the problem from a different perspective. Interacting with another mind, what I claim, creates a new dimension to the solution space and helps innovator to find a solution. So I go back now to patterns. So pattern, which I found in all the innovators and all the inventors, is that they need to create, in order to solve a problem, they need to create a 3D insight. And this 3D insight is visualizing the knowledge, which is fragmented because each expert has a totally different understanding of the problem, while being synchronized with other minds. So 3D insights, also what I claim, it's a particular state of consciousness. So it's a particular state when individual who makes, or inventor who makes an invention, he feels this eureka moment that he or she solves a problem. And my research also reveals that creative minds in business and science and technology, they find solutions to problems that seem impossible to solve while being synchronized with other minds. And the synchronization with other minds, this is what I, in the beginning, explained. This is a social intelligence, when people are able to build quality connections with other people. And this is what great leaders are able to do, or great creative minds are able to do. And every team that makes a significant discovery or creates an innovative prototype begins with pairing of two minds. And this particular synergy becomes impetus for innovation. How culture and social learning are connected. is that there was also an interesting book published by Sandy Pentland from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which was called Social Physics, where he described how social ideas spread. And he uses an analogy with physics, how the ideas diffuse. And he established a strong link between ideas, flow, and social learning. The model which I offer, this 3D model of culture, it explains how cultures of different size social groups become the containers for the tidbits of fragmented knowledge. And we need to create the flow between those different cultures. So mental hologram innovation method, it's a method which can be used by any expert team which is planning to create breakthrough inventions and has different experts on the team. So what's also important for synchronization of the minds, since I use this metaphor, which I then use as an analogy of holography and mental hologram, and what is crucial in physics for creating a hologram is two coherent laser beams. And if you think about photograph and compare it to a hologram, so the key difference between photograph and hologram, if you tear a photograph of a chair into many pieces, you will have a piece of a chair on each piece. But if you tear a hologram of a chair on many pieces, you will have just a smaller chair on each piece of hologram. And this is different technology. And to create a hologram, you need two coherent sources of light. And this quality of coherence, it's immanent in laser beams, and I create a term which characterizes coherent minds. So minds which can be matched in order to create an innovation or create a new invention. So what I call as a coherent mind, it's a minds who have extreme intellectual intensity, which enables them to focus on a problem. So they're able to see the problem as it is, to understand the formulation of the problem. Second, they're able to synchronize their knowledge and understand each other well. Or we can say, in other words, their thought processes are in phase, and they're able to maintain a specific perspective or angle relative to their area of expertise while discussing the problem. And the method which you see on the screen is mental hologram innovation method, which I refined. I invented it already a few years ago, and then I refined it. So it has two phases, and it has also preconditions. So there are preconditions, which I call here also matching the minds. And on the next slides, you will see labels, whether it's matching the minds or whether it's phase 1 or phase 2. And so what's important is that both innovators, it can be two more, you can always find a larger team of experts, they have to have an insatiable curiosity and urge to learn from each other. And the preconditions for them in order to start innovation, what's important is first that they have to speak the same language. And they have to understand each other very well. The same language would be the best if they speak the same native language. If this is the best, synchronization would be the best. If they do not have the same native language, then the foreign language which they will speak should be at least maybe native to one of them. But if it's also not possible, it can be foreign. But the best interaction when you have the same language native, then you have to understand technical vocabulary and professional jargon of each other. So if you come from different educational cultures, let's say that you have a physicist, a chemist, then you have a biologist, then you have a computer scientist, a psychologist, and they all together cooperate in order to make an innovative solution, to find an innovative solution, they have to be able to understand technical vocabulary or professional jargon of each other. For example, if you take physics, in physics, there is a term energy, which has a very clear measurement in kilojoules. And if you look in psychology, you also have term energy, but we do not measure it. And it's used in many ways which are spiritual energy, which makes no sense to physicists. So we have to find a common understanding. Third, we should be shaped by diverse cultures, for example, educational, gender, occupational, national. So if you have the more diverse the team in terms of gender, education, occupation, or nations, the more you will have different fragments of knowledge which you can integrate and which will help you to find a better solution. Fourth, you should value intellectual collaboration. This is also very important because many times teams do not value intellectual partnership, or they don't want to collaborate, or they do not share ideas. They are too competitive, and this is very important to have a value of intellectual partnership as a corporate culture if it's innovation team and the corporation. The next one is to possess a knowledge or original experience which is valuable to another partner. So they should be completing each other on different knowledge or different experience. They have to gravitate toward the problem and each other. And here, in simple words, there should be a social chemistry between them, so they find it very exciting to collaborate, work with each other. And if those preconditions are met, then they can move to phases, and we have 2 phases and 2 steps in each phase. So in total, 2 phases and 4 steps. And we will look now in detail, closely, different steps. So culture, we take, as I said, the more diverse from in terms of educational, gender, occupational, professional, national culture your team is, the better will be the pool of knowledge or available for the team. So first, matching the minds. So to get the synchronization on track, and social intelligence assumes that you're able to synchronize with another mind. This is where this endocrine system works. This is where you have other person is inspired to cooperate with you, to share with you the knowledge. So to get the synchronization on track, it's preferable if the experts will speak the same language as the innovator does. And the most effective pairing of minds happens when language of communication is native to both participants or the entire team. The next most effective happens when the language is native to one of the interlocutors, or one of the participants. For example, American and a German communicate in English. And the least effective when they all have to communicate in a language which is foreign to all of them. Let's say Austrian and French communicate in English, because a lot of information, a lot of knowledge will be lost. Another question, can technology make the knowledge transfer easier? No. So if you, as we said also in the first class with you, it's important for virtual teams to meet face-to-face from time to time, because in order to synchronize with their minds. And the process depends on synchronous interaction, and to be effective, the dialogue must happen in real time. Compared to face-to-face exchanges, or ones which are collocated in shared virtual space, texting will not allow to create the 3D insight. So matching the minds. Second one, assigning the roles. So in the mental hologram innovation method, 2 roles need to be assigned. The first role is an illuminating mind, and the second role is a reference mind. So illuminating mind is it's an innovator who is over familiar with the problem and knows everything well, understands it very well, and its context. And the reference mind is the expert or experts from knowledge domain with different knowledge, which is necessary for innovator to progress through the 2 phases in the journey of discovery. And that other knowledge from different domains will help innovator to see the whole picture, or the 3-dimensional picture. And the goal of a reference mind is to maintain a specific angle while answering the questions of innovator. And the examples of the questions which illuminating mind might ask the reference mind, or this expert, is, can you explain me how that works, or why is this possible? And this interaction helps the innovator to see in full the picture of the problem and to move towards finding a solution. So in terms of social intelligence, they fuse. So expert, here this reference mind, and illuminating mind, the innovator, they fuse their 2 minds together, and it becomes a singular system. Next one is to set the parameters of the interaction. Both an innovator and expert, they must be insatiably curious. And in case if we have more than 2 participants, so we have the entire team of entrepreneurs who want to build an innovative prototype, it's important that all of them possess this quality, because curiosity will fuel and learning and discovery. And experts with inquisitive minds, they will ask each other questions, they will explore and collaborate. So matching the minds. Next, we have to seek out experts which are shaped by diverse cultures, educational, gender, occupational, national. And we need to find those who possess the knowledge which is necessary for our own, or which are necessary to complement our experience or our original knowledge. And it requires always a careful analysis of the various kinds of knowledge needed to make innovation possible. For example, in the field of luminology, you need biologists, you need chemists, you need physicists in order to find solutions how, for example, to sustain a clean state of the lakes. So there's transdisciplinary teams. Another example is the company, it's now a very famous company, it's #1 in the world in female health and fertility, it's called Flo. And I was researching that team, how they innovated, and one of the co-founders, whose name was Eugenie, he was focused on the rapid innovation, he was illuminating mind, and all his team members, they were the reference minds, and each member of the team was aces in a specific field, be that 3D animation, marketing, or machine learning, virtual or augmented reality. And his team ended up creating products which attracted millions of users worldwide. So we're matching the minds, we're looking at the preconditions. So it's very important that dialogue is used as a method to the work of the team. And dialogue is many times is not happening because people are have very insecure egos, or they get offended, or they cannot have a creative tension. They think that disagreements, it's a bad sign, but disagreements, they actually foster creativity. And disagreements create a very good environment for finding the best solutions for creative ideas. And it's very important that dialogue should be very how to say, equal on the terms of parity for all of the participants. Neither of the participants can dominate or play the verbal king of the mountain, or who needs to win every exchange of ideas. So here we see it as we work together to find a solution. We work together to exchange the knowledge, to learn something together, and to create a new knowledge. Next phase, so first phase is a mind synchronization. It's phase #1, and we have the 2 steps. So the first phase is that you need to synchronize your mind with your intellectual counterpart's mind. And how do you do it? First is that you symmetrically exchange a valuable knowledge and experience. So symmetrically means that very often we have knowledge asymmetries if we come from different knowledge domains, and we need to bring it to the state where we are synchronous, meaning that what I know is exactly what all my members on the team know, and we are not lagging in time. And how do we do it is that we explain each other also the common technical vocabulary of our domains. We share the knowledge. We try to formulate everything in a very accessible language so that misunderstandings caused by ambiguity disappear. And it's important that all members of the team who will be exchanging this knowledge, and you can remember yourself when you were solving your challenges at the Mountain Everest, and you needed to visualize it also, that you need to be very good teachers, be able to explain in simple terms the concepts or the formulas you are using. You've been using formulas to calculate the length of the rope, and to understand context with the zero explanation, when somebody needs to understand the context. So step 1 in the synchronization of knowledge is symmetrical exchange of valuable knowledge and experience. So two minds, we can also call them thought partners. They focus closely on the problem which they are trying to solve and try to understand its dynamics. And what you do is you start with defining the problem and identifying knowns and unknowns. You can think about you making decision about this rope. Since all of you had different fragments of information written on your roles, you needed to bring it into one coherent whole. So how did you do it? Is that you start by defining the problem. So what do you have to find? You identify what are knowns, what are the unknowns, who knows what, so that you share this information freely and that you keep notes on everything. And you should also explain technical vocabularies if it's something which other members of the team don't understand. And the best thing is always to visualize your ideas. So the great solution which you used in your team when you took a flip chart and you were drawing on the flip chart that particular picture. So this is always visualization is a key. Second step is adjustment to a shared framing of the problem. So if problems are framed differently, once you frame them differently, you find different solutions. And there was a very interesting example also in the literature, how different framing of the problem can bring different solutions. For example, in one case, there was an elevator which was, according to the people who used it, was too slow. And the researchers, they were trying to find a solution. So what to do? If the elevator is too slow, what do we do? And the most, let's say, this lowest hanging fruit was the easiest solution. Let's change the engine, let's make it faster. But then someone suggested to reframe the problem. Maybe it's a psychological time of waiting for an elevator is high, so people feel that they're waiting too long. So how can we decrease the time of waiting? What can we do to decrease the time of waiting? Because people perceive that elevator too slow or they have to wait too long. And the solution which they found is to install mirrors next to the elevator, and then people, they started looking at the reflection of themselves in the mirror, and then they felt that the elevator is not too slow anymore. There was another solution. And another problem was in the United States with shelter for the cats and dogs, that they could not sustain, they could not, did not have enough places for all the animals which were dropped off at the shelter. And instead of going the regular way and thinking, what can we do, to facilitate that more people will take cats and dogs from that shelter as owners, they changed the reason, they reframed the problem. They thought in this way, what can we do? How can we help the owners who already have those pets to keep them at home, not to bring them to shelter? And they came with another solution, and they made a marketing campaign so that they will just help them financially so that they have enough money for vaccinations, for food, and so on and so forth. And thus they decreased number of animals being dropped at the shelter. So they reframed the problem. And when we talk about step 2, adjustment to a shared framing of the problem, when we discuss in the group, we have to frame the problem that everybody shares this framing. What are we trying to solve? What are our conditions? And if you consider Einstein, when his best friend Michele Besseau, he was an engineer, and Einstein, by his mind, was pairing with Besseau's mind, and Einstein's initial questioning of his assumptions about the concept of time led to discovery that time cannot be absolutely defined. And contrary to popular wisdom, brilliant insights are not mysteries of serendipity. They emerge from a systematic discovery process involving social learning. Then we move to the phase number 2. So you see it by the blue label in the right up corner, that is phase number 2. And you have illuminating a mental hologram of reality. So this is when you have a 3D insight. This is when you see your problem as a whole and in a 3-dimensional space, and then you're able to find a solution. And I will show you on the next slide the sphere, which I use to illustrate the mind of innovator in the state of consciousness when they see this 3D insight, or what do they feel, or how do they see it. And before we come to the mental hologram, the step number 3, it's establishing a new dimension to the solution space, and it happens when our mind synchronizes with another mind. This is the social intelligence at work. And what happens is, let's see, I'll show you the sphere. So the sphere, if you look at the sphere, this is the illuminator's mind, it's innovator's mind in the state of 3D inside, or at the state when they're illuminating a mental hologram of reality. And the center of the sphere represents a problem which an innovator is trying to solve. Orbits are tracks that allow the problem to be seen through the lens of other expertise, and the puzzle on the surface is the emergent knowledge or solution. And those different puzzles, they are in the minds of other different people who have specific technical knowledge on a particular problem or issue. A piece of the puzzle is a tidbit of fragmented knowledge, and the discrete puzzle pieces on the surface of the sphere are the tidbits captured by the language of one's own culture. And the two connected pieces are the tidbits of fragmented knowledge from different levels of the culture pyramid, which are connected by two minds with intersecting orbits. So once you interact with someone, let's say this orbit, you see, interacts with this one. So this one is interacting with this one. And then once they interact, they exchange the knowledge, hop, and then it's one puzzle is connected. And with more minds you synchronize, more people you talk, you analyze, then the entire sphere, then the surface will be covered with this puzzle, meaning you will solve the problem. So you need to work through with other people, trying to connect all these tidbits of knowledge about particular problem. So if we look at the step 3, establishing a new dimension to the solution space, and it's I will have a, let me see, I will show it, so I'll explain you, it will be for me easier, I'll just look at them. So let's see. So if we go now, let's see, to the sphere. So, and if you look at the sphere, and if we try to examine it in depth, for example, moving on the track of one's own orbit in this world of abundant and fragmented knowledge. So it's you can also see it as a world of knowledge. Let's say James' mind continuously processes the information as an illuminating mind, or a central connector of knowledge widely dispersed in different domains. And James' mind perceives a problem in a two-dimensional plane through the lens of his expertise. So let's say this is a two-dimensional plane. If you just take this one, let's say, circle inside of the sphere. And then he starts interacting with Julia, and he pairs with the coherent mind, and then he becomes synchronized with Julia's mind, which acts as a reference mind. Then he enters the orbit and starts seeing the problems through the lens of her expertise. And it's also very important that illuminating mental hologram of reality, it's not seeing a problem from a different perspective, because a new dimension to solution space emerges once two minds pair and start learning from each other. And when two minds synchronize, then the new knowledge is created, so they co-create new knowledge. And different kinds of knowledge emerge. And then two puzzle pieces, they connect on the surface. And then James starts synchronizing with another experts, let's say with Lucas, Suzanne, Marta, Alex, and those are experts from different educational, gender, national, and occupational backgrounds. And he engages in a dialogue, rich discussion, and then he connects the disconnected thoughts and disconnected parts of knowledge. And let's see. And so the last phase, it will be when the innovator feels that he or she made a leap to the finding solution of the problem. So any questions, guys? Maybe any questions? Should I go back to the slides? No questions?